Kyle, very good to see you. A really important discussion today. We are talking about the 6 questions you need to ask your advisor before you retire. Now, of course, you don't need a relationship with an advisor before you retire, but we do recommend just make an appointment, sit down, talk through these questions before you hang up your hat. The first question to ask a fiduciary advisor is, am I financially ready to retire? Financially being the operative word here.
Right, exactly. And it's so much more than a one question conversation when you
Yes.
go and sit with somebody. It's so nuanced and everybody is so different and unique. And so having somebody that's got experience, particularly in retirement and getting people all the way to retirement and then retiring them and then managing their portfolios through retirement is a huge asset. And so financially, that's the operative word, right? You need to know, yeah, can I retire financially, but mentally, can you retire? And then let's go through the kind of list of questions that need to make sure that you ask.
Yeah, I'm glad you brought that up, Kyle, because you are, of course, always thinking holistically. That's why I really enjoy having these conversations with you. So, the next question: what income sources will I rely on in retirement and how sustainable are they?
This is a really good one. And we've seen so many different cases now that, you need to understand, hey, do you have a pension that's going to kick in from work after you retire? What are the options, right? There's a list of different options on those. Social Security, what am I entitled to? How much, am I going to collect? Is my spouse entitled to the benefit? How much are they going to collect? And then where is your money going to come from? Ultimately, your savings. If you've got a bunch of private stock, and we've seen a handful of these cases now where you've worked at the same company for a while, it's private stock, you've saved a lot, but it may not necessarily be liquid or it's tied up in an employer plan. How do you make sure that you can access that money? So it is incredibly nuanced, especially on retirement income.
Mm-hmm. The next question is, how can I minimize taxes on my retirement income? I know this question is one of your favorites, Kyle.
It's a big one because we don't always factor in how much is going to be taxed when we retire. But in reality, and Erin, you've said this how many times, it's one of your biggest expenses in retirement.
Right.
And you can see on this image here, there's different types of money. You could have tax-free money like Roth IRAs, tax-deferred money. This is pre-tax, where most people have their retirement savings. And then those taxable accounts, those are like brokerage accounts or individual accounts that are non-IRAs that you invest inside of. And then you've got annuities and life insurance. So a couple other things that may be taxed differently. But it's so important to understand how things are taxed. Can you move anything around before you retire? And then what is the withdrawal sequence? What order am I pulling from in retirement to make sure that I don't pull any wrong levers?
Mhm. This is the one that brings it home for me, Kyle. This is why you can't say, hey, you need 1 million in the bank or 1.5 million to retire, because if all of it is in a 401k tax deferred account, that doesn't mean that you get all that money.
Right, exactly. And we've all seen those articles online. I know exactly what you're talking about. So everybody's million may be so different. And
Right.
that's my big point there. It's perfect.
Hmm. Hmm. All right. Next question. What, if any, adjustments should I make to my investment portfolio?
This is a big one, and you can slice this so many different ways. But one central thing that we look at when we talk about this with clients is, what is your drawdown? How much is really at risk in your portfolio, and how much could you lose in the case of a crazy market event? And they do happen. So we want to make sure that we prepare you, and every investor should know this. We can easily show you how much is at risk in your portfolio by doing some work for you.
Hmm. The next question, do I have enough saved to account for inflation and those unexpected expenses that always seem to happen?
This is the flip side of that coin that we just talked about, right? How much is at risk? Am I achieving the relative proper amount of return based on how much risk I'm assuming? And then is that going to be enough to sustain my retirement? There's definitely a little bit of a balance that you need to strike when it comes to retirement income and making sure that you're protecting your money from inflation. And the best way historically to do that is to invest in markets.
Hmm. All these questions, all these answers are certainly related. And the last one is really important. Do I have a plan for long term care? This question is essential because, Kyle, as we take a look at the cost of long term care, I'm going to stick with the 20 years from now column, 2043. Annually, it's going to range anywhere from $124,000 up to $211,000. So if you do not have a plan, this could wipe out your retirement savings.
Yeah, Erin, this is not a fun topic to talk about necessarily, but it's so important that we talk about it. You know, you see those figures on that graphic, that was a lot of money and it can absolutely derail a retirement plan. And, we need to make sure that we're accounting for it because statistically, what we've seen is about one out of every two people has some form of care event occur in their lives that they need to account for. Now, from our perspective, there's three ways that we tackle this, and it all depends on underwriting sometimes. So you have to qualify, but we have a pay it now approach where we assign a lump sum to cover your long-term care expenses. We could pay monthly, or we could buy a policy and pay on it monthly, or we could self-insure and say, hey, you know what? We may have enough to account for any event that may happen along those lines, but it's got to be a part of every plan. We make sure that we make it a part of every
Mhm.
conversation
Mhm.
at some point with clients.
I'm glad you said plan, Kyle, because again, having this conversation with you underscores to me that if your advisor is just talking about your investments, you need a new advisor. There is so much more that goes into a financial plan and making sure that you don't outlive your money. Kyle, if somebody wants to have that conversation with you, what's the best way to reach you?
The best way is through our website, and that's firstcoastfinancialgroup.com.
Great. Kyle, thanks for your time today.
Thank you, Erin.